Got little Alex with me today. How cute is he? Oh, you're a cute little murderer, aren't you? Yes. Sorry, had to. I'm just so proud. I'm just so proud of these little things. He's lovely. Hey guys, it's Eddie, and today I am back finally with another Movie Monday review for you all. Now I'm really excited today because today's review, as I have mentioned, is about one of my favourite ever movies in the history of cinema, and I'm just really excited to be talking about it to you guys today. It's definitely, it might be a weird one to have as your favourite movie. Not for me. I have like severely weird taste, but without further ado, let's stop the rambling and get started on reviewing this movie because it is just a great one. So today's movie that we will be reviewing is none other than Stanley Kubrick's dystopian crime classic A Clockwork Orange, starring the brilliant Malcolm McDowell as Alex Delage. Now, this film might be an acquired taste for some. It was renowned after its release for its violence and its inspiring of violence, especially throughout Britain, because it is the story of Alex and his band of droogs, his little gang, which embark on night after night on escapades involving many different rather uncomfortable to watch crimes, some of which we see at the beginning of the movie, including the infamous rape scene in which Alex rather strangely and in very strange juxtaposition sings Singing in the Rain. So yeah, this film is all about that. So it might not be the best film for you if you're not into that kind of stuff. I will say, firstly, as a disclaimer though, this film got a lot of stick when it came out for the sort of emotions and attitudes that it inspired, and you know, the reason for that was for its content. But if you compare it, of course, to some of the films that we see today, it's really not that bad. I've seen far worse than A Clockwork Orange. So don't be sort of scared to watch it because it's got this sort of big history of being a horrible, really disturbing film. It's not. I've seen far worse films that have made me feel way more uncomfortable and disturbed than A Clockwork Orange. So that's just a little disclaimer. I just kind of want everybody to watch it, so I'm just trying to make it seem not as bad as other people may do, and it's, of course it's not. I wouldn't lie to you. So despite these themes of, yes, and there are cars going past because yet again I'm filming outside my window, so I do apologise. Now, despite those sort of themes of crime and, you know, rape and violence, all from this sort of band of adolescents, Alex and his droogs, it contains some, you know, a really conflicting message, a moral message of reform, and whether this is the right thing to do to people because it takes away their sort of natural abilities, their natural impulses, their natural rights. And because once Alex is in prison for a murder, he undergoes this treatment, the Ludovico treatment, and it sort of takes away all of his sort of natural impulses, whether they be wrong or right. But it comes to the point where even in the past where he had wanted to attack someone, now because he is so sort of triggered by the mere thought or presence of violence to the point of nausea, he can no longer even defend himself in violent situations. So we're sort of seeing this change in Alex, and despite the fact that he is such a horrible person in the beginning, we start to feel sorry for him. So it's a very conflicting message, it's a movie that makes you think, and that's what I love about it. And you can sort of never be right or wrong in sort of what side you take. I don't think you can take a side. It's just one of those films that really sort of gets your brain working, and it makes you sort of really involve yourself in the situation of these characters, or this character in particular. And the really weird thing is that because all of this is happening to Alex, is that you can't feel like you hate him, which is odd because we're introduced to him as this sort of murderer and rapist, but the film and obviously the story by Anthony Burgess just cannot make you hate him, which is really interesting. And as I said, it definitely provokes thought. And this is all sort of helped by this absolutely incredible performance by Malcolm McDowell. It's just, he is the exact manner of sort of boyish innocence, whilst also being incredibly smart, calculating, and just that little amount of creepy with that infamous stare in the opening sequence. I think that Malcolm McDowell's performance in this film is one of my favourites in cinema history. He just adopts the role so well, and it makes me so mad that he was never even nominated for an Oscar for this film, let alone winning one. I think he should have won one, but unfortunately he didn't, and that sort of shocks me. It continues to shock me because it's such an on-point performance. I mean, come on, Academy. It's just also amazing set design and costume design and cinematography, and everything that you see in this film looks like a piece of art. The way that the sets are designed, you know, I think Alex's bedroom is just sort of the weirdest, coolest sort of set in film. It's sort of futuristic, Art Deco, you know, still with a hint of 70s, 1970s vibe there. It's great, I love it. And it's just like, you watch this film and it is literally like watching a piece of art. Like, you feel like it's just sort of like a treat for the eyes. I think there's so many different like colours and like, oh, it's just amazing to it's a feast for the eyes because it's just full of wonderful sort of you know, weird places, strange costumes, and it's fantastic. And you still get that sort of piece of industrial sort of 20th century Britain in there, which is cool, you know, helps the tone of the movie as well. And how could we sort of forget just the amazing, incredible direction by Stanley Kubrick? Stanley Kubrick is just one of those directors that you can't really fault, because especially in this film, the direction, the angles, everything fits, and it just, the shadows, for example, in sort of the opening, just that continuous long shot in the opening sequence where we see the camera start on Alex's face and slowly pan away until we see them all sat in the Corova milk bar, sort of ready to pounce and get ready for a bit of the old ultra violence. It's just so clever. Everything that Stanley Kubrick does with that camera sets the tone for the movie perfectly well. For example, another great piece of sort of direction that I can think of is when the four droogs attack the homeless old man in the tunnel, and it's just sort of their sort of very intimidating shadows walking towards him, and you know, there's sort of, it's very sort of, you know, that something's going to happen, and it just makes their characters seem even more sort of unhinged and violent, and yeah, it's crazy. I just think it's brilliant. It's just, like I said, it's a piece of art. This film, if you could think of a film as a piece of art, it would be A Clockwork Orange. As well, I think the music helps sets the tone, this sort of weird synthy take on old classics like the initial Funeral March for Queen Mary, sort of synthesized, as well as sort of your classical pieces with the infamous Beethoven, Alex's favourite, being played throughout. And it's just odd, these things seem to fit in the weirdest, quirkiest way, and I think that's what's so brilliant about this film. It's just strange, but everything seems to work. The story, the characters, the look, the direction, the music, it's just all seems to be so perfect. And despite him being such an anti-hero, you find yourself gripped to Alex's story, wanting to know what happens to him. I will mention that for those who have read the book and haven't seen the film, or vice versa, the ending of the film is significantly different to the ending of the book. I won't, tell you what happens for anyone who wants to find out for themselves, but there is a significant change that implies, a perhaps darker ending than the book did. And despite this sort of cut off that Stanley Kubrick does with Alex's character at the end, I won't tell you anything more than that. It's very impactful, and I don't know, it just feels like a Stanley Kubrick ending to me, and definitely sort of resonates with the tone of the movie. So I don't really mind that it was changed. But just to wrap this up, because I don't want to ramble on for too long, I think this film is strange, it's uncomfortable, it's quirky, it's very weird, but very enjoyable. I've watched this film multiple times and I never get bored of it. It is just so interesting to watch. I think it's one of Kubrick's best, in my opinion, if not the best. And I just love it. It's A Clockwork Orange. It's a classic, and I would definitely invite anyone to give it a try. It may be a little bit difficult to get into, a little bit weird, but I promise you it is worth it. And I just had to sort of gush about this movie because it's so near and dear to me. If I had to give it a rating out of 5 stars, I think you all know I'd probably give it a 5. But I know that some people might disagree. They might watch this film and think, what the bloody hell did I just go through 2 hours and a bit watching this for? It was weird, it was gross, and I didn't like it. But that's just my opinion. I take the view that it is a fantastic piece of cinema, and yeah, I would think you should all watch it, in my opinion. But feel free to post your opinions about this movie below. I always like to hear what you guys think. And please, if you have any suggestions for movies for me to review, also leave a comment or leave a message on my Tumblr account. The link is below in the description. But that is my opinion and my take on Stanley Kubrick's classic A Clockwork Orange. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.